humanity had finally made it. After years of exploration, humans had established their first intergalactic diplomatic ties, eager to engage with new alien species. Earth's space agencies had begun to prepare for a future of peaceful alliances, dreaming of technological advancements and the vast potential of the universe. But all of that changed in an instant. It started with a strange transmission. A garbled signal that echoed through every communication channel, cutting through all frequencies with terrifying clarity. The message was simple, chilling, and clear. We are the Zarek. Surrender your planet, or we will end your species. The broadcast was short, its tone cold and devoid of mercy. Before Earth's leaders could react, the world's satellites, the backbone of Earth's communication and defense systems, went completely dark. Power grids failed. Cities blinked out as darkness swallowed the planet. The transmission cut off as quickly as it came, but the implications were catastrophic. The Zarek were here, and their message made one thing clear: humanity was facing a threat unlike any it had ever known. These beings weren't just aliens. They were apex predators, feared across the galaxy for their brutal efficiency in annihilating entire civilizations. They didn't negotiate, they didn't reason. They simply conquered, exterminated, and moved on. And now, they were coming for Earth. Main events. As Earth reeled from the initial shock, the full scale of the threat began to unfold. The first sign of the Zarek's arrival came when their cloaked warships appeared in orbit around the planet. These ships were invisible to Earth's radar and undetectable by any normal means. The Zarek didn't need to launch an invasion. They didn't need an army to storm the planet. Their ships, capable of cloaking themselves from all detection, hovered above Earth, waiting. Earth's military scrambled to respond, but it was too late. With surgical precision, the Zarek launched their first strike, disabling Earth's orbital defense stations one by one. It wasn't a random attack, it was a calculated, merciless decimation. Entire defense satellites, designed to protect humanity from such a threat, were torn apart without so much as a warning shot. On the ground, panic spread quickly. Governments fell into chaos as communication lines were severed. Military leaders, unable to coordinate any form of defense due to the blackout, were powerless. Civilians in every corner of the world stared up at the night sky, helpless, as mysterious ships hovered silently, waiting. The streets filled with rumors of the Zarek's reputation, tales of entire species wiped out in mere hours, their homes reduced to nothing but ashes. People began to fear the worst, that Earth might be the next planet to disappear from the galaxy. Meanwhile, Commander Ava Reynolds, a seasoned space tactician and now one of Earth's last remaining leaders, knew that humanity couldn't afford to simply hide and hope for a miracle. Ava, who had spent years studying enemy strategies, understood that the Zarek were not like any enemy they had faced before. They were methodical, ruthless, and technologically far superior. She knew the only chance humanity had was to fight back, no matter how slim the odds. Ava called together the world's remaining military leaders and scientists, working around the clock to devise a plan. But time was running out. Every passing minute brought the Zarek closer to making their move, and Ava knew they needed something, anything, that could turn the tide. One idea stood out from the rest: the development of a cloaking technology that had been secretly tested years before, hidden deep within Earth's research facilities. It was an experimental defense system, one that had never been tested in battle. But it was Earth's last hope. Cliffhanger. In a desperate, high-risk maneuver, Ava's team initiated the cloaking system on Earth's final orbital defense station. The station, the last line of protection humanity had, would now go silent, hidden from the Zarek's eyes. The plan was simple: place it directly in the path of the Zarek fleet, hoping that their advanced cloaking systems would remain undetected long enough to stall the inevitable. It was a dangerous gamble. There was no certainty that the cloaking technology would work, and if it failed, Earth's last defense would be obliterated in an instant. But Ava and her team had no choice. They activated the system, hoping that somehow, against all odds, it would buy them enough time to mount a response. The minutes ticked by. Ava stood at the command center, her heart pounding as she watched the data streams. Everything was riding on this moment. Suddenly, the Zarek fleet, now closing in fast, appeared on the radar. The cloaking system had worked, but for how long? Earth's final defense was in the path of destruction, and it was unclear if the Zarek's advanced technology would detect the hidden station before it was too late. The tension was unbearable. Ava knew that the fate of humanity now rested on a single, fragile hope. Would Earth's final defense hold? Or was this the beginning of the end? The sky above Earth was silent, save for the occasional hum of satellite transmissions. But beneath the calm, there was a storm brewing. The Zarek fleet was now visible to the naked eye, hanging ominously in the blackness of space. They were no longer cloaked. Their warships, colossal and menacing, cast long shadows across Earth as they loomed in orbit, preparing to strike. Ava Reynolds stood at the command center, her eyes fixed on the screen. The final orbital defense station, cloaked and hidden, was the only thing standing between humanity and certain destruction. This station, a powerful weapon in its own right, was humanity's last hope to buy time for a counteroffensive. Ava had ordered the activation of the cloaking system earlier, but now they would need to rely on it completely. The defense station was hidden from the Zarek, but they were fast approaching. And once they knew Earth was trying to fight back, they would not hesitate to destroy it. Ava's voice was steady, but inside, her heart raced. The Zarek were the ultimate predators, efficient and merciless. She had no illusions that this would be easy. They had already destroyed Earth's orbital defenses, and this was their final play. If the cloaked defense failed, humanity would have nothing left. Activate the defense systems, Ava ordered, her voice cutting through the tension in the room. The technicians worked furiously, inputs flying across the screens as the final lines of defense powered up. A low hum filled the room as the energy built, ready to face the inevitable. Then, suddenly, the first Zarek ship fired. The bright beam of energy sliced through space, narrowly missing the cloaked station. It was a warning shot, a signal that the Zarek had detected the Earth's last stand. The station fired back, its energy shields shimmering against the blast, but it was no match for the overwhelming power of the Zarek warships. The battle had begun. Ava's heart pounded as she watched the skirmish unfold on the screens. The Zarek ships unleashed rapid laser fire, cutting through space like knives. The orbital defense station retaliated with limited firepower, but the Zarek's weapons were far more advanced. Explosions echoed across the command center's monitors, and Ava's team worked feverishly to keep up with the relentless assault. The station shook under the weight of the attacks, its shields barely holding. But the real nightmare began when the Zarek initiated their next phase of the attack. From their warships, they deployed swarms of advanced drones, robotic soldiers capable of destroying anything in their path. The drones were fast, maneuverable, and relentless. They dove toward Earth's surface, targeting major cities with pinpoint accuracy. Ava watched in horror as the drones reached the Earth's atmosphere. Within minutes, they began their orbital bombardment. The Zarek were not just here to conquer, they were here to obliterate. The drones released devastating explosive charges, raining down destruction on cities across the globe. From the command center, Ava could see the fiery streaks of explosions, the destruction of human civilization unfolding in real time. Major cities, New York, London, Tokyo, disappeared in a wave of fire and dust. Earth was under attack like never before, and humanity was helpless. In the midst of this chaos, Ava's team worked tirelessly to gather information on the Zarek's advanced AI systems. The Zarek's fleet was controlled by a central artificial intelligence that operated with terrifying efficiency. It adapted quickly, countering every move Earth's forces tried to make. Ava knew that defeating the Zarek wouldn't just require power, it would require intelligence. "We need to understand their AI," Ava said, her voice determined. Find any weaknesses, any loopholes. If we can disrupt their central system, we can buy more time. The tech team dove into their work, running simulations and hacking into the Zarek systems. Hours passed in a blur. Ava watched as her team worked around the clock, trying to uncover any flaw in the Zarek's network. If they could find a way to break their AI's control, they might just have a chance to survive. But as the battle raged on, a shocking discovery was made. In the depths of Earth's archives, a mysterious piece of information surfaced. It was a legend, a rumor of an ancient human weapon, one that had been hidden away by a long-extinct civilization. No one knew if it was real, but the myth had been passed down for generations. It was said to be a weapon capable of neutralizing any AI, no matter how advanced. Ava's eyes widened as she read the information. If the weapon existed, it might be humanity's only hope. The team immediately began searching for any traces of it, diving into old records and hidden vaults. Time was running out, and the Zarek weren't slowing down. But there was no time to waste on ancient myths. Ava knew that even if the weapon existed, getting to it would be a monumental task. The Zarek were closing in fast, and they were taking no prisoners. Earth's cities continued to burn, and the orbital defense station's shields were growing weaker with each passing minute. Ava had to act quickly. It was then that tragedy struck. Bonner, Ava's trusted right-hand soldier, was sent on a high-stakes mission to infiltrate one of the Zarek's drone factories. The operation was critical. If they could disable the drones, it might shift the balance of the war. Bonner was one of the few who could pull off such a mission, but it was a dangerous one. And this time, the odds were stacked against him. The mission was a success, but at a high cost. Bonner was critically injured in an explosion during his escape. His injuries were severe, and the team rushed to save him. Ava stayed by his side as he slipped in and out of consciousness, trying to keep him alive long enough to return to base. But as the hours passed, Bonner's condition worsened. In the end, there was nothing they could do. Bonner died in Ava's arms, his final words a quiet vow to never surrender, to keep fighting for Earth. His death hit hard, like a punch to the gut. Bonner had been more than a soldier, he was family. Ava's heart hardened. This wasn't just a fight for survival anymore. It was personal. The Zarek had taken one of her own, and she wouldn't rest until they were brought to justice. The team, shaken by the loss, found renewed strength in Bonner's sacrifice. This fight was now about more than just defending Earth. It was about avenging those they had lost. Cliffhanger. With Bonner's death fresh in her mind, Ava made a vow: Earth would fight back, no matter what. The mysterious weapon, the key to winning the war, was still out there, but time was running out. As the team prepared for the next phase of their mission, Ava looked at the battlefield ahead and made a silent promise. The Zarek had made a deadly mistake by underestimating humanity. They would pay for it. The team was running out of time. Ava Reynolds could feel the weight of each passing second. The Zarek fleet was relentless, and Earth's last defenses were crumbling under the might of their attacks. Major cities had been destroyed, and the orbital defense stations were barely functional. With Bonner's death still fresh in her mind, Ava knew that the key to humanity's survival lay in the mysterious weapon, the neural swarm. This weapon, which had been buried in the annals of forgotten history, was now their only hope. After hours of searching through ancient records and cryptic files, Ava and her team had tracked down its location, a long-abandoned facility hidden deep beneath the Earth's surface. The facility, isolated and forgotten for centuries, was the place where the weapon had been conceived and developed by a long-extinct human civilization. Ava, along with her most trusted soldiers and tech experts, descended into the depths of the Earth, navigating through tunnels and forgotten pathways. The facility was dark, eerily silent, as if it had been waiting for this moment. As they approached the central chamber, a sense of awe and fear settled over them. What would they find? Could this long-forgotten weapon truly help them defeat the Zarek? Inside the facility, they discovered a vast array of old, dusty blueprints and data files. The walls were lined with technology that seemed impossibly advanced for its time, even by today's standards. Ava's team sifted through the blueprints and data, piecing together the story of the weapon. What they found was both exhilarating and terrifying. The neural swarm was a prototype weapon designed to interface directly with a human mind. This weapon, powered by a mind-link network, could theoretically overpower the Xeric's highly advanced artificial intelligence systems. It was a weapon unlike any the galaxy had seen before, capable of infiltrating the Xeric's neural networks and breaking their control over their fleet. But there was a catch. In order to activate it, the system required a volunteer to merge their mind with the weapon's central core. This connection would allow the chosen individual to control the neural swarm, directing its power from within. However, the process was dangerous and irreversible. Merging with the system could break the volunteer's mind, leaving them a hollow shell. It was a sacrifice, one that could save humanity, but at a terrible cost. Ava's heart sank as she absorbed the gravity of the situation. To defeat the Xeric, someone had to step forward and take on this horrifying risk. But who could make such a sacrifice? Who could bear the responsibility of possibly losing their mind to save the Earth? As Ava pondered the choice, she couldn't help but think of her family. Her younger brother, Ethan, was a brilliant hacker and one of the few people capable of understanding the complex technology that powered the neural swarm. He had been part of the team that had uncovered the weapon's existence, and he had been instrumental in analyzing the data. He understood the risks more than anyone. Ethan had always been fearless. Ever since they were children, he had never hesitated to dive headfirst into danger. He had often joked about being the one to save the world, but Ava had always laughed it off. Now, as the reality of the situation set in, she knew this wasn't a joke. The Xeric were coming, and there was no time left. Earth was on the brink of destruction, and the neural swarm was humanity's only hope. As the team continued to analyze the weapon's core, Ava turned to Ethan, who had been silent for some time. He was standing at the center of the room, his face illuminated by the soft glow of the data screens. He looked up, meeting her gaze. "Ava," he said, his voice steady. "I know what needs to be done." Ava's heart skipped a beat. "Ethan, no. You can't." "I'm the only one who can do this," he interrupted, stepping forward. "I've worked on this technology for years. I understand it better than anyone. You know the risks, but it's the only way. I'm ready." Tears welled up in Ava's eyes as she realized the enormity of the decision. Ethan had always been there for her. He had been her closest ally through every mission, every battle. But now, he was offering himself as the ultimate sacrifice for humanity. She didn't want to lose him. She couldn't. "No," Ava whispered, shaking her head. "You're my brother. I can't let you do this." But Ethan was resolute. "Ava, I've made up my mind. You've led us this far. Now it's my turn. You taught me that we never give up, no matter the odds. This is my chance to do that, to give everything for humanity." Ava's mind raced as she considered his words. She had always known Ethan was brave, but she had never imagined he would volunteer for something like this. He wasn't just volunteering for a mission, he was volunteering to give up his mind, his identity, his very life, in order to save Earth. "Please," Ava pleaded, her voice breaking. "There has to be another way." But Ethan's gaze remained firm. "This is the only way, Ava. I love you. And I love this planet. I'll do whatever it takes." Ava's heart shattered as she realized the magnitude of what Ethan was about to do. But she knew he was right. There was no other choice. Earth's survival depended on this, and Ethan was willing to give everything for it. With a heavy heart, Ava gave him her blessing. "I'm proud of you, Ethan. You've always been the bravest person I know." The team began preparations to merge Ethan with the neural swarm. The process would take hours, and there was no guarantee he would survive it. But if there was even a chance this weapon could defeat the Zarek, it had to be done. Cliffhanger. As the countdown began, Ava stood by Ethan's side, her heart torn between hope and fear. The neural swarm was humanity's last chance, but what would it cost? Could Ethan truly control it, or would the weapon destroy him in the process? The clock was ticking, and Earth's fate rested in his hands. The battle for Earth had reached a new, desperate level. Ava Reynolds stood at the heart of the command center, watching as the final phase of humanity's last-ditch resistance unfolded before her eyes. With her brother Ethan now linked to the neural swarm, there was hope, a faint, flickering hope, that humanity could still win this fight. But time was running out, and the Zarek were preparing to unleash their most devastating weapon. Ethan's hacking skills had allowed him to interface with the neural swarm, sending out powerful electromagnetic pulses that disrupted the Zarek drones hovering above the planet. It was a small victory, but a victory nonetheless. Each pulse disabled hundreds of Zarek drones, giving Earth's remaining forces a fighting chance. However, the Zarek were relentless. They quickly adapted, countering the electromagnetic pulses with their own advanced tech, but for a moment, humanity had a chance to catch its breath. Ava, standing beside her team, felt a surge of pride. She had seen the power of unity firsthand. The loss of Bonner had left a hole in their hearts, but it had also ignited something in the hearts of every soldier and civilian on Earth. Humanity was no longer just a group of fragmented nations. Under Ava's leadership, different factions, once divided by politics and old grudges, had come together to form a single united army. It was a remarkable transformation, one born from the dire need to survive. With each passing hour, Earth's forces continued to push back the Zarek onslaught. Soldiers, now armed with experimental weapons, engaged in ground combat with ferocity. The Zarek AI forces were powerful, towering robotic enemies that had the strength and technology to obliterate anything in their path. But humanity fought back with the only weapon they had left, ingenuity. Close-quarters combat was brutal. Ava's soldiers had been trained for months in guerrilla warfare, using the terrain to their advantage. They ambushed Zarek units with traps and innovative tech, turning the tide in certain areas. The soldiers knew they couldn't match the Zarek in sheer firepower, but they had the will to fight, and that made all the difference. Ava, now leading a team of human and alien forces, coordinated every attack with precision. Each battle was a mix of fast-paced action and brutal strategy, as the humans used stealth, speed, and surprise to make the Zarek pay for every inch of Earth they took. The Zarek retaliated with devastating force, launching counterattacks that leveled entire city blocks. But even in the face of overwhelming destruction, humanity stood firm. As the battle raged on, Ava couldn't help but worry about her brother. The neural swarm had been the last hope for humanity, but now it was beginning to take its toll on Ethan. His body was no longer his own. His mind, once sharp and clear, was becoming blurred and fragmented. Ethan had started to experience strange hallucinations, vivid flashes of memories that weren't his own. He began to forget things, names, faces, even parts of his past. It was as if his identity was merging with the neural swarm, becoming one with the weapon. Ava knew this was the price of the sacrifice. The neural swarm was an unprecedented weapon, and its power came at a terrible cost. Every moment Ethan spent connected to it pushed him further from humanity and closer to becoming something else. The connection was irreversible. Despite these alarming signs, Ethan continued to fight. His mind might have been slipping, but his resolve remained unwavering. He sent out pulses to disable Zarek drones, creating opportunities for ground forces to push forward. His connection with the neural swarm was the key to humanity's survival, but Ava couldn't help but fear what would happen if he lost himself completely. Meanwhile, on the ground, the humans were pushing forward with everything they had. Each victory, no matter how small, boosted morale. As the Zarek's drones continued to swarm the planet, the soldiers fought harder than ever. They knew they were outmatched in terms of technology, but they had something the Zarek lacked, the will to survive. The intense combat escalated as both sides unleashed their most destructive weapons. The Zarek AI forces launched missile barrages that scorched the earth, while humans countered with cloaking technology and high-powered energy weapons that tore through the Zarek's ranks. The battlefield was a chaotic mix of fire and explosions, with soldiers engaging in desperate hand-to-hand combat with robotic foes that seemed to grow in number with every passing second. Ava watched the battle unfold, knowing that they had to keep fighting, no matter the cost. The war wasn't just about winning, it was about survival. Each human soldier, each alien ally who stood with them, was fighting for their homes, their families, their futures. And they weren't going to give up. But even as they fought with everything they had, there was a growing sense of dread. The Zarek were not only relentless in their attack, but they were also cunning. They had been observing the humans' tactics, learning from their every move. Ava knew that the Zarek would soon counterattack with their full force, and this time, it would be much harder to survive. Then, the unthinkable happened. The Zarek command ship, the massive behemoth that had been lurking just outside Earth's orbit, finally entered the planet's atmosphere. It was a sight that sent shivers down the spines of every human soldier. The command ship was preparing to unleash its final weapon, a planet-wide disintegration pulse that would turn Earth into a lifeless, barren rock. It was the Zarek's most destructive weapon, capable of erasing all life on Earth in an instant. Ava's heart raced as she watched the command ship power up. There was no time left. If they didn't act now, humanity would be wiped from existence. This was it. Earth's last chance. Cliffhanger. Ava stood at the command center, staring at the massive Zarek ship as it charged its disintegration pulse. Ethan's connection to the neural swarm was their only hope, but he was growing weaker with each passing moment. The clock was ticking, and Earth's fate was in their hands. Could they stop the Zarek in time, or was this the end of humanity? The time had come. Earth's fate rested on the shoulders of Ava Reynolds and her team. The Zarek command ship hovered ominously in Earth's orbit, ready to launch its planet-wide disintegration pulse. The Zarek had pushed humanity to the brink of annihilation, but Ava wasn't about to let her world fall without a fight. With her brother Ethan still linked to the neural swarm, humanity's last hope lay in a desperate, dangerous plan: infiltrate the Zarek flagship and disable their hive link, the central neural network that connected every Zarek ship, drone, and soldier. Ava and her team suited up, ready for their final mission. The Zarek flagship, a monstrous vessel hovering over the planet, was heavily fortified, and its interior was a labyrinth of advanced alien technology. Ava's plan was simple but perilous. She and her team would infiltrate the ship, disable its central command, and sever the hive link, cutting off the Zarek's connection to each other. It was the only way to stop the alien fleet and prevent the destruction of Earth. As they breached the enemy ship, the team was immediately met with overwhelming odds. The Zarek had anticipated such a move, and every corridor was booby-trapped with deadly alien tech. The team had no choice but to rely on their wits and their newly acquired weapons. Ava, always calm under pressure, directed her team with precision, leading them through the dark, maze-like hallways of the Zarek vessel. Explosions rang out as traps were triggered, but the team pressed on, determined to reach the heart of the enemy ship. The Zarek defenses were relentless. Alien drones emerged from hidden compartments, and the ship's automated turrets fired deadly energy blasts. Each confrontation was a deadly game of cat and mouse, as the team fought their way forward, using their advanced tech to disable the enemy's weapons and outsmart the traps. But they couldn't afford to waste time. Every second brought them closer to the Zarek's final, devastating weapon. Just when the team reached the heart of the ship, disaster struck. One of Ava's key team members, Lieutenant Harper, realized that the only way to disable the Zarek's shields was to trigger an EMP bomb hidden deep within the flagship. The bomb was the last of its kind, and its effects would be temporary, leaving the ship vulnerable for only a few minutes. It was a dangerous plan, one that required a volunteer to stay behind and activate the bomb while the rest of the team continued their mission. Harper didn't hesitate. With a solemn nod, he activated the bomb and stayed behind, knowing that he would never make it out alive. The EMP bomb detonated, sending a powerful shockwave through the Zarek flagship. The ship's shields flickered and failed, creating a brief opening for Ava's team to push forward. As they made their way deeper into the heart of the ship, the effects of the EMP bomb began to take hold. The Zarek defenses weakened, and the team could hear the Zarek AI forces scrambling to react. But they were running out of time. The Zarek command ship would soon be ready to fire its disintegration pulse, and Earth's fate hung in the balance. Meanwhile, Ethan, still connected to the neural swarm, was beginning to show more violent side effects. His body, once able to handle the connection, was starting to break down. The connection to the neural swarm was warping his mind and body, pulling him further from humanity. His thoughts became erratic, and he began experiencing violent tremors as his mind struggled to stay in control. Ava could hear his labored breathing through the comms, and she knew that he was barely holding on. Despite his weakening state, Ethan managed to do what no one else could. Using his deep connection to the neural swarm, he hacked into the Zarek's central systems. His hands shook as he typed furiously, bypassing firewalls and security protocols. His mind was merging with the weapon, and with every passing moment, it became harder for him to distinguish between his thoughts and the weapon's influence. But he pushed through the pain, weakening the Zarek defense systems just enough to give the team a fighting chance. The Zarek command ship's shields faltered, and the neural link between the Zarek forces began to waver. Ava knew they were close, but the hardest part was still to come. Finally, Ava and her team reached the Hive Link, the neural core of the Zarek fleet. It was a massive, pulsating structure, a dark heart at the center of the ship, filled with energy and strange, alien technology. Ava's heart raced as she approached the central control panel. She knew that severing the connection to the Hive Link would destroy the Zarek's neural network and, with it, their fleet. But there was a terrible cost. To destroy the Hive Link, Ava would have to sever Ethan's connection to the neural swarm. The thought of losing her brother forever was unbearable. Ava hesitated, torn between the survival of Earth and the loss of her family. Ethan had sacrificed everything for humanity's chance at survival, and now it was up to her to finish the job. If she cut the link, it would kill him. The weight of the decision was suffocating. But the longer she hesitated, the closer the Zarek came to firing their disintegration pulse. Ava's heart pounded in her chest as she stood before the Hive Link. Her team looked at her, waiting for the order to strike. Ethan's voice crackled through the comms, weak and strained, but resolute. Ava, you have to do it. For humanity. Tears filled Ava's eyes as she reached for the control panel. The fate of the entire world was in her hands, and she knew what she had to do. Cliffhanger. Ava's hand hovered over the controls, the final decision hanging in the air. If she severed the link, she would lose her brother forever. If she didn't, humanity would be wiped from existence. The moment of truth had arrived. Would Ava make the sacrifice, or would the Zarek's destruction of Earth be inevitable? Ava's heart felt like it was being torn from her chest as she stood before the control panel, her finger hovering over the button that would sever the connection to the neural swarm. Ethan's voice, strained and faint through the comms, echoed in her mind. Ava, you have to do it. You have to destroy the Hive Link. It's the only way to save Earth. It's the only way to save humanity. Ava's heart felt like it was being torn from her chest as she stood before the control panel, her finger hovering over the button that would sever the connection to the neural swarm. Ethan's voice, strained and faint through the comms, echoed in her mind. Ava, you have to do it. You have to destroy the Hive Link. It's the only way to save Earth. It's the only way to save humanity. Her eyes filled with tears as she looked at the screen, her brother's face flickering on it for just a moment. Ethan had been the one to volunteer for this mission, merging with the neural swarm to save humanity. He had sacrificed everything for the chance to defeat the Zarek, and now, in the final moments, he was asking her to do the unthinkable, sever the bond that tied him to the weapon. To destroy the hive link would mean killing him. Ava knew there was no other choice. The Zarek forces were closing in. Their ships, massive and terrifying, hovered above Earth cities, ready to launch an extinction-level attack. The final disintegration pulse was almost ready to fire, and Earth's defenses had been utterly shattered. Ava could feel the weight of the world on her shoulders, knowing that her next decision would determine the fate of everyone she loved. Her breath caught in her throat as she glanced back at her team. They were all standing by, waiting for her command. The gravity of the moment was suffocating. The decision wasn't just about saving Earth, it was about saving what remained of her family. With one move, Ava could either ensure humanity's survival or lose her brother forever. But as she looked at the faces of her team, she realized there was no other choice. Ethan had given his life for this mission. She owed it to him to finish it. With a final, painful breath, Ava slammed her finger down on the control panel. The moment she activated the switch, a massive shockwave erupted through the Zarek fleet, sending ripples of energy through the alien ships. The hive link, the neural connection that held the Zarek together, shattered with a resounding blast. In an instant, the entire Zarek fleet was plunged into chaos. But as the shockwave coursed through the ships, Ava felt something tear inside her. The connection between her brother and the neural swarm broke with a final, painful jolt. She felt his presence fade, like a light being extinguished. Ethan was gone. The love of her life, the brother who had fought so hard to save humanity, was lost. Her hands shook as she wiped away the tears that had fallen onto her cheeks. The Zarek fleet, now devoid of their central coordination, began to crumble. The ships that had once been so formidable and relentless were now falling apart. Their AI systems went haywire, unable to function without the hive link. The drones scattered in disarray, and the alien forces no longer had the unified strength to continue their assault. One by one, the Zarek ships spiraled into chaos, some crashing into each other, others breaking apart as their internal systems failed. Earth's final hope had been fulfilled. The Zarek fleet was collapsing, and humanity had won. But the victory felt hollow to Ava. She had saved the planet, but at what cost? Her brother, the person she loved most in the world, was gone forever. There was no celebrating, no triumph, only the crushing weight of loss. Ava stood motionless, staring at the wreckage of the Zarek fleet, her mind struggling to process what had just happened. She had made the ultimate sacrifice for the survival of Earth, but the cost had been her brother's life. Her heart ached, and she couldn't bring herself to feel relief. She had saved the world, but in the process, she had lost the most important person in it. As she stood there, still reeling from the emotional storm inside her, something strange caught her eye. In the vast expanse of the debris, a faint signal flashed on her screen. It was a weak, broken signal, buried deep within the neural swarm. Ava's eyes widened as she recognized the pattern. It was a message, encoded and hidden within the remnants of the weapon Ethan had merged with. Her breath caught in her throat as she realized what it meant. The message was from Ethan. It was faint, barely a whisper in the chaotic aftermath of the battle. The signal flickered and faltered, but Ava could make out the words. Ava. I'm still here. I'm still with you. The message was brief, but it was enough. Ava felt a sudden warmth spread through her, a feeling of peace that she hadn't known since the moment she lost her brother. Ethan's consciousness, his spirit, had somehow survived within the neural swarm. It was faint, like a ghost, but it was there. He wasn't truly gone. Part of him remained, connected to the very system he had sacrificed his life for. Ava's hands trembled as she stared at the screen, trying to make sense of the message. She didn't know how much longer the signal would last, but for the first time since her brother's death, she felt a flicker of hope. He had been lost, but perhaps he wasn't gone forever. As the Xeric fleet continued to disintegrate in the distance, Ava knew that Earth had been saved. But the cost of victory was immense, and the battle wasn't truly over. The future was uncertain. What would happen to Ethan's consciousness now? Was there a way to bring him back? Or was this faint signal the last reminder of the brother she had lost? Cliffhanger. As Ava looked upon the wreckage of the Xeric fleet, she heard a faint echo in her earpiece, a voice she hadn't expected to hear again. Ethan's message was weak, but it was real. The question now was, could Ava find a way to bring him back, or was the price of victory more than she could bear? Her eyes filled with tears as she looked at the screen, her brother's face flickering on it for just a moment. Ethan had been the one to volunteer for this mission, merging with the neural swarm to save humanity. He had sacrificed everything for the chance to defeat the Xeric, and now, in the final moments, he was asking her to do the unthinkable, sever the bond that tied him to the weapon. To destroy the Hive link would mean killing him. Ava knew there was no other choice. The Xeric forces were closing in. Their ships, massive and terrifying, hovered above Earth cities, ready to launch an extinction-level attack. The final disintegration pulse was almost ready to fire, and Earth's defenses had been utterly shattered. Ava could feel the weight of the world on her shoulders, knowing that her next decision would determine the fate of everyone she loved. Her breath caught in her throat as she glanced back at her team. They were all standing by, waiting for her command. The gravity of the moment was suffocating. The decision wasn't just about saving Earth, it was about saving what remained of her family. With one move, Ava could either ensure humanity's survival or lose her brother forever. But as she looked at the faces of her team, she realized there was no other choice. Ethan had given his life for this mission. She owed it to him to finish it. With a final, painful breath, Ava slammed her finger down on the control panel. The moment she activated the switch, a massive shockwave erupted through the Xeric fleet, sending ripples of energy through the alien ships. The Hive link, the neural connection that held the Xeric together, shattered with a resounding blast. In an instant, the entire Xeric fleet was plunged into chaos. But as the shockwave coursed through the ships, Ava felt something tear inside her. The connection between her brother and the neural swarm broke with a final, painful jolt. She felt his presence fade, like a light being extinguished. Ethan was gone. The love of her life, the brother who had fought so hard to save humanity, was lost. Her hands shook as she wiped away the tears that had fallen onto her cheeks. The Xeric fleet, now devoid of their central coordination, began to crumble. The ships that had once been so formidable and relentless were now falling apart. Their AI systems went haywire, unable to function without the Hive link. The drones scattered in disarray, and the alien forces no longer had the unified strength to continue their assault. One by one, the Xeric ships spiraled into chaos, some crashing into each other, others breaking apart as their internal systems failed. Earth's final hope had been fulfilled. The Xeric fleet was collapsing, and humanity had won. But the victory felt hollow to Ava. She had saved the planet, but at what cost? Her brother, the person she loved most in the world, was gone forever. There was no celebrating, no triumph, only the crushing weight of loss. Ava stood motionless, staring at the wreckage of the Xeric fleet, her mind struggling to process what had just happened. She had made the ultimate sacrifice for the survival of Earth, but the cost had been her brother's life. Her heart ached, and she couldn't bring herself to feel relief. She had saved the world, but in the process, she had lost the most important person in it. As she stood there, still reeling from the emotional storm inside her, something strange caught her eye. In the vast expanse of the debris, a faint signal flashed on her screen. It was a weak, broken signal, buried deep within the neural swarm. Ava's eyes widened as she recognized the pattern. It was a message, encoded and hidden within the remnants of the weapon Ethan had merged with. Her breath caught in her throat as she realized what it meant. The message was from Ethan. It was faint, barely a whisper in the chaotic aftermath of the battle. The signal flickered and faltered, but Ava could make out the words. Ava. I'm still here. I'm still with you. The message was brief, but it was enough. Ava felt a sudden warmth spread through her, a feeling of peace that she hadn't known since the moment she lost her brother. Ethan's consciousness, his spirit, had somehow survived within the neural swarm. It was faint, like a ghost, but it was there. He wasn't truly gone. Part of him remained, connected to the very system he had sacrificed his life for. Ava's hands trembled as she stared at the screen, trying to make sense of the message. She didn't know how much longer the signal would last, but for the first time since her brother's death, she felt a flicker of hope. He had been lost, but perhaps he wasn't gone forever. As the Xeric fleet continued to disintegrate in the distance, Ava knew that Earth had been saved. But the cost of victory was immense, and the battle wasn't truly over. The future was uncertain. What would happen to Ethan's consciousness now? Was there a way to bring him back? Or was this faint signal the last reminder of the brother she had lost? Cliffhanger. As Ava looked upon the wreckage of the Xeric fleet, she heard a faint echo in her earpiece, a voice she hadn't expected to hear again. Ethan's message was weak, but it was real. The question now was, could Ava find a way to bring him back, or was the price of victory more than she could bear? The war was over. The Xeric fleet, once a terrifying symbol of death and destruction, lay in ruins. The threat that had loomed over Earth for so long had finally been extinguished. Humanity had emerged victorious, but the cost had been immeasurable. Thousands of lives were lost, entire cities reduced to rubble, and the scars of the battle would remain on Earth for generations. Yet, amid the ashes of their ruined world, humanity had found hope, strength, and unity. Ava stood before a vast crowd of soldiers, civilians, and world leaders, all gathered in the heart of what had once been a shattered city. The air was thick with the weight of their victory. The cheers and applause echoed through the ruins, but Ava knew the true cost of this moment. The price of freedom had been steep. Her brother, Ethan, had sacrificed himself to ensure that the Hive Link was destroyed and that the Xeric would be defeated. There would be no grand celebration for him, no hero's welcome, only silence, and the unbearable emptiness that came with loss. But Ava knew that she had to speak. She had to honor the sacrifice of her brother, her team, and the millions who had given their lives to protect Earth. As the crowd quieted, she stepped forward, her heart heavy with grief, but filled with determination. She raised her voice, and the silence that followed felt like the breath of the entire world, waiting for her words. "This is not just our survival," Ava began, her voice steady but powerful, "this is our declaration. We will not bow to any force, not to AI, nor to alien tyranny. We stand as one, unbroken, unyielding. We are humanity, and we will always rise, no matter what tries to tear us down." The crowd erupted into applause, but Ava's thoughts were elsewhere. She could still feel Ethan with her, his presence lingering in her mind like a faint, comforting whisper. But she also knew that his sacrifice had not been in vain. Humanity had fought back against impossible odds, and they had won. In the aftermath of the battle, Earth was not alone. The victory against the Xeric had resonated across the galaxy. Other species who had suffered under the Xeric's brutal rule saw humanity's victory as a beacon of hope. The Xeric, once the rulers of countless worlds, had fallen, and in their wake, a new alliance was forming. Ava had been part of the talks with other civilizations, forging new partnerships and alliances that had been unthinkable just months ago. The galaxy was beginning to heal, and humanity was at the center of that healing process. Ava looked up at the sky, the stars glittering like jewels in the dark expanse of space. There was a new sense of purpose in the air. Earth had emerged from the war battered but stronger than ever before. Humanity had not just survived, humanity had proved that they could overcome anything, no matter how powerful the enemy. They had faced extinction and come out victorious. The future was uncertain, but Ava knew one thing for sure: humanity was ready. They had faced the darkness of the unknown and had emerged triumphant. Now, as they looked to the stars, there was nothing they couldn't achieve. The journey had only just begun. In the days following the battle, the world began to rebuild. Governments and military forces worked together to restore order, and the civilian population began to return to their homes. Cities were slowly reconstructed, but the scars of war would never fully fade. Yet, in those scars lay the story of humanity's strength. The story of how they had fought back against an unbeatable foe and had won. The alliance with other species was only the beginning. With the Xeric's fleet destroyed, there was an opening for new alliances, new friendships, and a new era of peace. Ava and the other leaders knew that the galaxy would never be the same again. The events of the war had changed everything: how the galaxy viewed Earth, how Earth viewed itself. The future was no longer just about survival. It was about thriving. As the celebrations continued and humanity took its first steps into a new era, Ava found herself once again looking up at the stars. The universe was vast, full of unknowns, but for the first time, she felt that humanity was ready for whatever lay ahead. No longer would they cower in fear or submit to tyrannical forces. The Xeric had been the first to challenge them, but they would not be the last. In her mind, Ava could still hear her brother's voice, a faint echo from the neural swarm. "We're not done yet, Ava. There's more to fight for." Ava's heart ached, but she felt a sense of peace settle within her. Ethan's voice would stay with her, guiding her as she led humanity into the future. The road ahead would be difficult, but it was a road they would walk together, united as one. The final scene of the story is set against the backdrop of a world on the brink of rebuilding. Earth, battered by the war, is slowly rising from the ashes, stronger and more united than ever before. Humanity has survived the Xeric and has emerged victorious. But their victory is not the end, it is the beginning of a new chapter. The world may never be the same, but it is no longer a world in fear. It is a world ready for whatever the galaxy holds. Final scene. The camera pans across the horizon of Earth, showing the remnants of the war, rebuilding cities, restored forests, and communities coming together. In the sky, the once dreaded Xeric ships are nothing more than ruins floating in the vast emptiness of space. Earth's future, once uncertain, is now full of promise. Humanity stands stronger, united, and ready to face whatever comes next. As the camera zooms out, Ava stands on a high balcony, looking up at the stars. She raises her hand to her heart, a silent promise to her brother and to humanity: no matter what happens, humanity will always stand tall. The dawn of a new era has begun.